Hello.
Oh,
Hello?
all right. It works.
Julian, is that you?
Yes, that's me.
Rebecca, you want to sit in there? So,
Okay.
it's in here.
Hi.
Good to see you again.
Nice to see you again.
Stop video button, right? Yeah, or turn off the cameras. They're not.
Everything looks good on my end.
Okay, great. And it sounds good. You can hear me clearly.
Perfect.
Reverb.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we're just gonna, when he gets in, get him settled, we're gonna do that off camera.
Okay.
Hit the stop video for a second. Sorry.
Hi there.
Hello again.
One of our participants is already here waiting, so I just want to let you know that.
Hello.
And everyone else will join us right at 4:30.
Okay, great.
I don't know if you want to rename the box or if you wanted me to, remember?
Yeah, Chris. Yeah, we'll do it on our end.
Okay. I was going to run to get a glass of water, but I'll do that when you're ready.
You can go get a glass of water.
You sure? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your sound is terrific. So, all right, I'll be
Okay,
right back.
great. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll push the stop video button so they don't see him, fixing himself up. And I'll also hit the mute, so. Chris, why don't you put on mute for you? When he walks in, they don't have a recording.
Yeah. Here it is. Hopefully this works better.
Yeah. President Trump's name, not your name.
Yeah.
Still says Chris Benson.
Yeah.
Should be President Trump or Donald Trump? Mhm.
And it's
Hi, everyone. We're going to begin in just a few minutes. So sit tight and we'll get started soon. Welcome, Mr. President. How are you?
Well, how are you? Thank you, Julian.
Nice to see you. Well, let me start. I want to welcome everyone, and I want to keep my introduction short so that we could use our time well today. Today, we're joined by the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. After seeing the New York Times piece about our conference and the book, the President offered to speak to us about his time in the White House. And without further discussion, I want to turn this over to President Trump, and assuming there is time when he's done with his comments, we can have some time for questions. At that point, please raise your virtual hand, and if I call on you, you can unmute yourself and you can ask your question. And one final note, if possible, please leave your camera on. Mr. President.
Well, thank you very much, Julian. That's true. I read a piece and saw a couple of other pieces that you're doing a book. And I said that I'd like to see accuracy. And I think we had a great presidency. If you look at all of the things we've done, including foreign affairs, we did things in foreign affairs that nobody thought even possible. The Abraham Accords and other things, and many other things. We'll go over them, I'm sure. And it's an honor to be with you. I know many of you through your own success and through reading about you, and certainly know your institutions well. And congratulations on that. So if you're doing a book, I would like you to be able to talk about the success of the Trump administration. We've had some great people. We've had some people that weren't so great, and that's understandable. That's true with, I guess, every administration. But overall, we had tremendous success. Tremendous success at home with the economy. Prior to the pandemic, we were setting records in every way with unemployment, with the fact that we had 160 million people working. No, this country was never even close to that. We were respected throughout the world on trade. We got rid of NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever made, and we replaced it with USMCA, which is Mexico, Canada, and it's been a fantastic boon to the farmers and manufacturers. It's been a tremendous success for us, less of a success for them. Frankly, they were very unhappy about it. They fought it very hard. Everybody said it would be impossible to break NAFTA because they have a lot of strength. The two countries have a lot of strength with our Congress, but I have a lot of strength with our Congress also. And we were able to get that done. People were surprised by that, but it's been a tremendous thing. With China, we did a big deal with China, and I was talking about it constantly, the trade deal. But after we got hit with the plague, or whatever you want to call it, I took China in terms of my friendliness toward China. I took that off the table. It was very hard what we had to put up with and what the world had to put up with. But we made a trade deal that's had a tremendous impact on farmers. Farmers are doing better now than they've ever done before. The trade deal that we made with China had a huge impact on manufacturing, had a huge impact on the farmers. They bought record amounts of wheat, record amounts of just about every product, corn, soybeans, every product. They were buying magnificent, very big amounts. They've never even come close to that. And I talked about it very braggadociously for a period of time. And then after we got hit with the pandemic, with what came over from China, I really didn't talk about it too much anymore because it's very much in effect. It's doing great. But I felt that the pandemic eviscerated just about everything we had to do with China, including a very good trade deal, because we made a great deal. There's probably the biggest deal. Actually, USMCA is actually a bigger deal. Believe it or not, it's a bigger deal. It's the largest trade deal ever made. But the China deal has a chance to be bigger, but it's been tremendous for so many. But you look at our economy, and then what did we do? We went to work and we built the economy again. We built it a second time, and I left, and the Dow and everything else was much higher than it was before. And I think very importantly, there are some people that say my greatest achievement was getting the vaccine, because the vaccine was said to take 3 to 5 years, and most people said it wasn't going to happen. And whether it's Dr. Fauci or anybody else, they all thought it was going to take a long time. And we had a possibility of having a 1917 Spanish flu result where perhaps 100 million people would die, and the vaccine saved them. And I also, and you probably heard me say this at least a little bit, don't say it too much, but we made maybe one of the best bets in history, because we bought billions and billions of dollars worth of the vaccine by saving time, long prior to knowing whether or not it was going to work. Now, I had an idea it was going to work. I'd meet with the drug companies. I put tremendous pressure on the FDA. If you interview them, they will tell you we don't like him. But if they liked me, it would have been 3 years, 5 years, and probably you wouldn't have a vaccine. They were very bureaucratic. They were very slow. They have their likes and their dislikes of drug companies, certain companies. You saw that with Johnson & Johnson when they did a pause, which was a very bad thing that they did in terms of getting the vaccine out. But the pause for Johnson & Johnson was not good. And you see the way they deal with Pfizer and others much differently. But I put a lot of pressure on them. We also I did a favored nations clause, as you know, on drugs, which could bring our drug prices down from the highest in the world by far to the lowest in the world by far. In other words, it's a favored nations where we match the lowest nation anywhere in the world. Nobody can believe I did that. If Biden holds it, which he may not, because he's under tremendous pressure from the drug companies, they spent a lot of money against me because of that. Nobody thought that I would do that. And I do it because I was a president that did what was right for the country. And our drug prices are ridiculous. The same pill from the same factory in the same box would sell in various countries in Europe and other places for many, many times less than what we pay for it. Many, many times less. That's despite transportation costs if we made it here. But it was a tremendous price differential. And I said, why is it that in certain countries, including if you look at various European countries, many European countries actually, why are they paying so much less for the exact same pill or medicine, prescription drug? And nobody could explain it to me, but it didn't matter because I understood it very well. And I did a favored nations clause, and that is something that will have a huge impact. And even on drug prices before the favored nations kicks in, which it should kick in very soon, have an unbelievable impact on the price of drugs, which is what my interest is. And by the way, I could have been very friendly with the drug companies. I know them, I like them, they're good executives, but they fought me. They spent $22 million, I understand, in negative ads. I see it all the time. They were calling me actually a socialist, which is interesting. But the reason they did is they said I dealt with socialist countries, because the favored nations, really, it seemed that certain socialist countries got the lowest price for whatever reason. You'll perhaps explain that to me, but I wanted the lowest price for our people. So many, many things we've done. If you look at NATO, take a look at NATO. I went there and had one meeting, and I said, this is strange. I looked at the numbers were coming down, plummeting, how much other countries were spending, and our number was going through the roof. And we were essentially spending more money for NATO than ever before, by far. They were spending less, much less. Over a 20-year period, they just kept coming down. It was a roller coaster downward. We were a rocket ship upward. And you take a look at what I did. I got $430 billion more, where they put in $430 billion. Now, this didn't happen quickly. First, it was 130 billion. But I said, this is unfair. I sat 28 countries. I sat and had a long conversation. And amazingly, it wasn't picked up by the press. One of the few times I've ever had a conversation that wasn't picked up by the press, even though we had all of these leaders of countries, all presidents, all prime ministers. And we sat around and I said, listen, this is my first meeting, but this is very unfair, because every year you're going down and we're protecting you primarily from Russia, was the Soviet Union, now Russia. very similar, as you understand better than anybody. And you're paying less and less, and we're paying more and more. And I think we were paying 80 to 90%. Some people were saying 100% for the cost of NATO. And yet we were being taken advantage of totally on trade. China was very bad on trade. You know that. I did tariffs and everything else and really had a big impact. We took in tens of billions of dollars and saved the steel industry and other things. But the EU was just as bad in many ways as China. I'd ask Angela, how many Chevrolets, Angela, are you selling in Munich? And she would laugh and smile, and we'd both smile together. But we understood they're very tough. They didn't buy our farm product. They didn't buy our cars. They didn't buy very much from us. It was a very bad situation. So I said to the European Union people, I said, so you mean we take care of you with the military, with NATO and other things, but we take care of you with the military at a level that nobody's ever seen before. And you, excuse the language, you screw us on trade, and you have been for many years. We had a deficit with them of $180 billion. Now with China, when I came in, we had a deficit of $507 billion. And people can, and I know some of the people in the room think differently of deficits, but I view deficits as purely loss. And a lot of people agree with me. We had a tremendous 507 billion, not million, 507 million is a lot of money. $507 billion with China, $180 billion with the European Union. And in many ways, they were as bad. In some ways, they were worse than China. I said to them, you got to pay your military dues. You can't do that. Now, it's only 2%. It's only 2%. It should be 4%, should even be 5%. They have the bargain of the century. But Germany pays a little bit more than 1%. And I'd say, when are you going to pay? Well, we can't. I said, you got to pay. I'm sorry, because the other presidents that you write about, in some cases glowingly, they would go to NATO. They wouldn't even mention it. They'd make a speech and say, good luck. And I went to NATO and I made a speech and I said, listen, it's not a fair situation. We're a country with big deficits. And why are we paying so much for your protection? Why aren't you paying for your own protection? So what happened was very interesting. We had a meeting, everybody there, and the president of a certain highly respected country said to me, sir, are you insinuating that if we don't pay, you will pull out of NATO? And I said, yes, I'm sorry, but yes. Now, if I didn't say that, I would, obviously, they wouldn't have paid. And the Secretary of General of NATO, if you look back in the records, he was the single biggest supporter of Donald Trump. He could not believe it because Stoltenberg, he was a man who really felt badly treated by countries in NATO because they just kept paying less and less, and the US kept paying more and more. But they asked me the question, they said, would you be really actually thinking in terms of pulling out? And I said, yes. Now, it's not an answer I wanted to give. Some people sort of feel that NATO is incredible. Some people think it's highly overrated. And I can tell you, if you look at France, they think it's highly overrated. I don't think they'd be there I think you have certain countries that wouldn't be there, frankly, and they wouldn't be there as allies for us, despite the fact we bend over backwards to take care of them. So with NATO, I did a tremendous thing, and I got them to pay initially $130 billion and then $430 billion. And it made up a tremendous amount. Now, again, other presidents would go, they'd make a speech and they'd leave. I went, I made a speech, but I also said, this is very unfair. This is very, very unfair. And they get it really both ways. Through trade, they take advantage, and through the military, they take advantage, and very severely take advantage. So I just thought that I would speak to you people, and I respect you. I respect the people I know, and the people I know of, I have great respect. And I thought if you're writing a book, it would really be nice if we had an accurate book. We've had some good ones. We've had some bad ones. We have books written that bear no relationship to the facts, but they want to write them because they just want to write them. And actually now the good ones are doing better than the bad ones, which is very interesting. But we've had some very inaccurate statements. And I've gone a little bit out of my way, Julian, to speak to people. If they're going to write a book, it's history. Your book is a very important book. I'm looking at the list. It's a tremendous group of people. And I think rather than being critical, I'd love to have you hear me out, which is what we're doing now. And I appreciate it. And I'll answer your questions. But I just will tell you, we created the greatest economy in the history of this country. The foundation was so strong that when we went down, we came back up. We did a great job, got no credit for it. We did a great job on the pandemic. They used to say, look how well India is doing. Well, tell me about India. India is getting absolutely brutalized by COVID, as you know. But they used to use any country that was doing well. Oh, look how well, because it's a very unfair media. Look how well this one's doing. It turned out they all turned out very bad. It's a very, very serious problem that this world had. Very, very serious problem. So we did a great job of getting the ventilators. We started making ventilators and became the biggest producer of ventilators in the world by far. We got all of the gowns and the goggles and the masks and all of the things because the states were bare. I used the term, I'm sure you heard it. Their cupboards were bare. They had nothing, most of them, almost all of them, essentially. Even the ones that had something had very little. And the United States had nothing. We had virtually nothing. So we had this pandemic and we were not prepared for it as a country. The previous administrations, not just President Obama, but the previous administrations were totally unprepared. I hear that Bush wrote books about pandemic and they were thinking about, but they never did anything. They talked about it. It was all talk. It was all talk and no action. And so we got to work and we did an incredible job. We had to go buy from everybody all over the world. And it was tough because everybody else wanted to buy too, the masks and all of it. Now we're one of the major producers of masks. We're one of the major producers of gowns. I've gone to openings of factories, many openings of factories where they make it, where 3M and even Honeywell and, companies that you would never think in terms of doing it. We make the ventilators through General Motors and Ford. We took closed plants and we opened them up, closed auto plants. And we did a great job. We got almost no credit for it. It's sad. We had a conference call with governors once a week. And after a few weeks, we got them tremendous amounts of equipment and tremendous amounts of product. And after a few weeks, you had to hear, I hope you can get the tapes because they were recorded conversations, but the governors were praising me and the administration for the incredible job. They'd say, sir, we need 1 million masks. We need them tomorrow. And I'd have them to them that day. I'd have them before tomorrow. And all of this. And they were saying incredible things. Even the most hostile Democrat governor, political, they would say fantastic things. And then they'd go out and they'd have a news conference a day or two later and they'd knock the hell out of me. It was so unfair, so unfair. But we did a job. And then again, I think maybe the most important job and the one job that everyone agrees is we came up with a vaccine years ahead of projection, years and years. It was less than 9 months as opposed to many, many years. I mean, I heard 10 years, by the way, but a lot of people would say anywhere from 3 to 5. But I've heard, much longer than that. And I also will tell you that I went through the FDA and I looked at their guidance and their guidance was terrible. They just couldn't, they would have lapse periods. They call them a lapse period, but they would have long-term periods where they just sit around and not do anything. I said, why is that? Well, we like to see what happens here and there. I said, is there a reason for it? No, it's been custom. It's been custom. I said, wait a minute, millions of people are dying. This isn't about custom. Millions of people are dying. So all of that, and then you look at Russia, nobody was tougher on Russia than me. I'm the one that exposed the pipeline. I'm the one that stopped the pipeline. The pipeline is everything for them. And I stopped it. And then Biden started it, but he stopped the Keystone Pipeline. And environmentally, the Keystone Pipeline is much better than using trucks and railroad trains, which are actually very dangerous to use, going down the highways. But I stopped the Russian pipeline. I sanctioned Russia at a level that nobody's ever seen before. At the same time, I had a good relationship with Putin. I got along with him. We created a great energy. We became energy independent. As of next month, we will no longer be energy independent. We'll have to be going back to Saudi Arabia. We'll have to be going back to Russia. I mean, Russia's got to love Biden. He gives them a pipeline, and then he also raises the price. So energy, gasoline was $1.87 when I left office, and now it's $3.50. And every 50 cents is like a major tax increase. You know, if you look at from a middle income standpoint, if you look at what's taken place, we created an incredible energy industry business, and we didn't need the Middle East anymore. In fact, I was saying you have to protect, you know, we've protected the Middle East free of charge for many, many decades. And I was telling them, I said, look, we don't have to be there anymore. If you want protection, you should pay for it. You're very wealthy countries. You've made a fortune. And yet we are protecting you, number one, militarily. And number two, very importantly, not only are we protecting you, we're making it possible for the oil to keep flowing. And who's the biggest purchaser of the oil? China. So I say, why isn't China paying? They don't pay 10 cents. So all of those things I changed or was changing. And just a couple of other things. I would say to Japan, we made a new trade deal with Japan where they had to pay a lot. But I'd say to them, so we're paying for a large part of your military, and you're killing us with the cars. You're sending in millions of cars, and we're not charging you tariffs, essentially, very low number. And yet you don't take our cars. Then I renegotiated a trade deal with Japan, which turned out to be great. I said to Korea, South Korea, and I have a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un, even though, as you people know better than I do, it started off very, very rocket man, right? It started off very, very tough, but in the end became very good. We have a very good relationship, and you heard of no problems for 4 years. When I met with President Obama before I took office, we were going to war. We were going to have war with North Korea. That's what he said. He says the single biggest problem we have is North Korea. And then I took it over, and I was very rough rhetorically, and so was he. Talked about the button, and I said, my button's bigger than yours, and mine works, and back and forth. And all of a sudden, he called and he sent emissaries that they'd like to go to the Olympics in South Korea. I said, wow, that's a big step. And all of a sudden, we started talking. We got along great. We had summits and didn't make a deal because I said, you got to get rid of all nuclear, and they were willing to get rid of some, but not all. I said, for you to have some is no good because you don't need all. All you need is one plant, and that's enough to do the damage that you can never be allowed to do. But we didn't have a problem, and now you see they have problems. Now you see they have problems with Taiwan. Watch what's going to happen with Taiwan. I met with President Xi. I said, don't ever do Taiwan. Don't ever do it. I said, I never want to see Taiwan done, ever. And, you know, we're 9,000 miles away. But I said, I never want to see that happen. And he said, I understand. And we never had a problem. Now, all of a sudden, I leave, and we have planes flying over Taiwan every day. And as you know, they're looking very seriously at taking Taiwan. They do not have respect for President Obama, whether you like it or don't like it, whether you are a big Democrat or not, they do not have respect. Kim Jong-un does not have respect. Russia does not have respect. And it's a very dangerous position our country is in. I rebuilt the military. It was old, it was depleted. Our fighter jets were 40 years old. They couldn't even get parts. They'd have to go to the graveyards in Nevada and in Arizona, where they kept the old planes, to take out parts because you couldn't get parts for our fighter jets. And we have a completely rebuilt military, all made in the USA, and many other things. Just maybe I'll finish by talking about South Korea. So I came in, and my first day, they wanted me to sign something. I said, what's this? That's a military defense, that's a missile defense system. And I said, who makes it? And they told me it was Raytheon. Okay, good. How much is it? $1 billion. I said, okay. So we're building a $1 billion system along the border of North Korea, South Korea. Let me ask you a question. Who's paying for this? Sir, you are, meaning the United States, a general said to me. So I said, let me get this straight. So we have South Korea, which is making a fortune. We pay their military, and most of their military, we get almost nothing. And now you're telling me we're going to put in a system to shoot down rockets from North Korea. It's going to cost $1 billion and we're paying for it. Why aren't they paying for it? They took our television business away. They took shipping business. They took everything. They're doing great. They're making a fortune. Why aren't our cars? They make a big percentage of our cars. And by the way, I renegotiated that deal where on the trucks, the chicken tax, they call it, I had that extended for a long period of time where we get 25% as a country. That was expired, many other things. But I said, so why aren't they paying? And I said, no, they got to pay. I'm not paying. Well, they said, President Obama said, we're going to pay. I said, it's all right. So we negotiated. We made a very good deal. But more importantly, on a bigger picture, I said to President Moon, I said, President, we have 32,000 soldiers in South Korea. We're protecting you from North Korea. You're a very rich country. You're making product that nobody would believe. You took away a lot of our auto business. You took away all of our television business. You took away shipping business from all over the world. You're doing the building of ships. You're a very wealthy country. President, you have to pay. No, I will not pay. We will not pay. You have no idea the level of energy. I respect it greatly, but the level of energy, the opposite of Jeb, the exact opposite. I will not pay. I said, no, you have to pay. You have no. And this went on for 20 minutes. By the end of the conversation, he agreed to pay hundreds of millions of dollars. And here was the deal. I got them up to 1.2 billion a year. Nobody knows this. Nobody writes it. I think they know it, but nobody writes it. And I said, this was a year and a half ago. And the reason I got them, it probably costs us $5 billion a year. The military was unable to tell me, by the way, how much. All I know is that we have a tremendous 32,000 soldiers. We have, probably much more than 5. But anyway, I said, no, you have to pay. He said, we can't. When he settled down, because he was very aggressive, when he settled down, which took him a little while, he said, we have a problem. And I understood this problem. We have to go through and have it approved by council. And I said, I understand that. And I said, what we'll do is we'll pay approximately 1.2 billion. And then we'll bring it to 1.2 billion. And then for next year, you'll pay $5 billion a year. No. I said, yes, you will. And we just about had an agreement. And then the election came. And I know you disagree with this, but when you look at what's happening now with the election, I think you're going to say a lot of bad things happened. And by not winning the election, he was the happiest man. I would say in order, Iran was the happiest because I wouldn't have had to deal with Iran in 2 minutes. We put on sanctions. I mean, they don't even want to meet with him. He took off the sanctions off Iran. He lost all of his negotiating ability. I would have had a deal with Iran within the first 48 hours to 1 week. We would have had a great deal with Iran. And now Iran doesn't even want to meet with him. And now they're asking for money. They got 150 billion plus 1.8 billion in cash. Now they're asking for money. The whole thing is crazy. So I said to him, you got to pay $5 billion. He said, no. We had a deal. He was going to pay $5 billion, $5 billion a year. But when I didn't win the election, he had to be the happiest. I would rate probably South Korea 3rd or 4th happiest. China, Iran, Russia. Russia. He said to me, you're killing me with the pipeline. Nobody heard of that pipeline. None of you heard of that pipeline before I became president. I said, what the hell is Nord Stream? You're giving all of this energy, you're selling it to Germany and to Europe, and then we're protecting you from the people that are getting all of this money. What kind of a deal is this? And I did sanctions on, as you know very well, on companies that were involved in the pipeline. The whole thing was stopped, and then Biden started it. But just to finish, so on South Korea, we had a deal, essentially, roughly, $5 billion a year. We would have, I think, probably come out making something, believe it or not, but they had they had the money to pay it. So we had a deal, would have happened, all set. And then when the election was rigged and lost, what happened is that the deal went away. And I just read last week that they made a deal with the Biden administration to pay a cost of living of less than 1% increase, cost of living. So instead of billions and billions and billions more money than we've ever seen come into this country, they paid a little cost of living, a little cost of living on the money that I got them. It was a cost of living on the money that I got. So I get no credit for it. And I only thought that I would talk to you people because you are respected. You're doing a book and you can talk about some of the things that I mentioned. We're building an aircraft carrier. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. The Gerald Ford. The tower is on the back, sitting right on top of the ammunition, where they store the ammunition. By putting the tower in the back, it's much tougher. Toughest thing you can do as a pilot is land on an aircraft carrier at sea. The toughest. Great pilots can't do it. And it's very tough. Now you're putting the tower in the back. So it makes it very much narrower in terms of claustrophobia, in terms of space, instead of putting it in the middle like you've had for as long as we've had aircraft carriers. And they put it over the ammunition dump. But even worse, they have a new technology they want to use. On the elevators, they want to use magnets to lift up the elevators. That's the elevators carrying the planes from basements. They call them basements, and they hold the planes and they bring them up to deck, and they have to go quick, and they have magnets. Unfortunately, they don't work. And I told them that as soon as they came, I said, magnets will not work. Give me a cup of water, throw it on the magnets. You totally short out the system. They said, how did you know that? I said, because I know that. I know that. And the second thing is on the catapult system. The catapult system is electric. So I said, why electric? For 50 years, we've had steam. And steam can be hit by waves. It can be hit by anything. And it's good and easy to fix. And it's great. So when I went and visited the carrier has been under construction for many years. And I went to visit it. And I said, I want to take a look what's wrong, because this thing was years late and tens of billions. I think it's going to cost $18 billion. It should have cost $3 billion, right? And more importantly, I said, it's never going to work. So I went to visit it, and the Admiral greeted me. I said, hello, Admiral, I want to meet you, but I really want to meet somebody else. Who? The catapulters. So I met with the catapulters, and I said, 5 guys. One of these guys, I mean, it was central casting. I said, how long have you done this? He said, 21 years, sir. I said, tell me, we're going to electric. How is it doing? No good, sir. You can't fix it. And if it gets a little damp or wet, the thing goes off. It's no good. I said, what do you like better, steam or electric? Steam, sir. There's not even a contest. He said, when this thing breaks down, you have to be Albert Einstein. He used that expression to fix it. With steam, I can fix it with a hammer and a blowtorch. That's what I've been doing. I said, why did they do this? And he said, because they wanted the catapult to go every 5 seconds. Boom, boom, boom. He said, but what they don't understand, sir, is that it takes us 1 minute and 59 seconds to load a plane. So it doesn't help that it goes more rapidly. The other thing is we have more power with steam. And the big thing is if we get hit by waves or we get hit by bullets or whatever we get hit by, the steam is so simple. We can fix it. We can't fix this thing, sir. It's a disaster. So I met with the architect. I said, let me ask you a question. This is the largest ship in the world, by the way, the Gerald Ford. I said, let me ask you a question, Mr. Architect. Have you ever designed a ship before? And his answer was basically not like this. I said, why didn't you use a hydraulic system like we use on tractors that you can hit it with a blowtorch and it's fine? He said, I didn't know. So we have now an aircraft carrier that doesn't work, that was designed by people that were not smart, that had no common sense. They wanted to just go to the next technology. The next technology on elevators under perfect conditions is magnets, but it doesn't work. And these are just some of the things. And so I was in the process of getting it fixed. I was holding the contractors responsible, that's in Norfolk, who made a fortune on this thing. They made an absolute fortune. And we got an aircraft carrier out there that's absolutely useless because the catapults don't work. That's where you throw the planes off, right? The catapults don't work and the elevators don't work. Other than that, it's a lovely ship, but it's not a good ship because it was built incorrectly. And that's the story. And with that, I will take questions, and it would be my honor to do so.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll ask the first question, and if others have questions, please just raise the little hand and I'll call on you as we move forward. I had a question. Every president has a different way of communicating with voters. Your use of Twitter as a mechanism of communication was certainly a defining element of your term. And I've been curious, were the tweets as spontaneous as they seemed, or was there preparation, discussion, and even strategy behind what you wrote?
Yeah, maybe both. They were pretty spontaneous, but maybe both. And it's been very interesting because Twitter, I think illegally, but we'll find that out through various court cases that will be produced. I'll give you a little exclusive that will be produced in the not too distant future. But when they did what they did, can you imagine doing that? It's not even believable. I went to a system of press releases, and we're getting tremendous traction on those press releases, tremendous. If somebody's doing a book that I like, I put it out on the form of a press release. In fact, actually, the Times did a story 2 weeks ago saying that the voice has been carried. You know, it's a very unusual thing. It only works for me. It wouldn't work for somebody would do a press release. Everyone's going to say, what's this all about? But I put out press releases on different things, whether it's, any of the things I talk about that I would talk about Twitter. And two things. Number one, it's far more elegant. And number two, I'm not stopped by the number of characters, which is actually a good thing, actually, but you don't want to go too long either. I mean, I realize that you don't need a 10-page statement, but it is a far more elegant way, and it's getting the word out incredibly well. But very spontaneous, but I think also a lot of thought goes into them. And generally, I will say that the things that got me in the most trouble were the retweets, because I'd retweet and I do it fairly quickly. And sometimes you're retweeting somebody that was not the best person to retweet. But Twitter was good for me. Now it's become very boring, as you saw. You've seen what's happened to it. They took me off. They took other conservative voices off, and a lot of conservative voices have left. And I think you're going to see various forms of, you're going to see various platforms over the next fairly short period of time that it will be better than Twitter. Actually better in the sense that Twitter's a little bit old-fashioned technologically. I mean, I love it. My uncle, Dr. John Trump at MIT, he explained a concept to me many, many years ago that was similar to what's happening now. He was a brilliant guy. I think he was the longest serving professor in the history of MIT, I think, but many years. But he was a brilliant guy and a great guy. And I think you're going to see some platforms out of necessity that are going to come, sometimes out of strife, out of problems come good things. I think you're going to see some platforms that are going to be better than Twitter.
Okay, I will ask for everyone to keep their questions succinct so that we can get as many as possible. So I'm going to start with Jeffrey Engel from SMU.
Good.
Mr. President, thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you.
I hope you
Thank
hear
you,
me
Jim.
okay. It's raining very hard here.
Yeah. Here too, by the way. Here too.
I will try to be succinct. I really appreciate your discussing NATO in such depth. I actually have the privilege of writing the NATO chapter and the International Alliance chapter for this book. So I have a specific question and then a broader question. The specific question is, you mentioned at the beginning of your remarks a conversation that was had with the other NATO leaders, which was not reported in the press or was not properly reported in the press to the extent that you thought proper. I'm hoping that we can get your staff to give us some more information on that. I'd love to have the transcript of that conversation. Obviously, it would be wonderful. But secondly, and more broadly, philosophically, obviously you are well experienced in negotiation. And I'm just curious, when you offered to our NATO allies that perhaps we would not come to their defense if they did not pay more or if they did not deal with our trade deficits as you wanted. That's very blustery. That's a very strong position. But I'm curious, in your own mind, is that something that you could have foreseen? Could you have foreseen an attack against one of our NATO allies in which the United States would not have responded?
It's a great and a very fair question. And it's a tough thing to answer, because I agree with you that there is a good thing to unity. There is a good thing to NATO. I think some people like NATO more than I do. And part of the reason it was really obvious right from the beginning, as I really got involved with it, how unfair it is to the United States, because we pay, as you know very well, much better than me, we pay a vast proportion of NATO, much more than we should be paying. They should be paying their costs. But as you know, we have some countries in NATO that are virtually not paying at all. And I would ask them, I say, so let me ask you, you get attacked by Russia, you don't pay, you're delinquent, you are not paying. And we now are going to get into World War III. You get attacked, you're not paying. We have some, as you know, Jeffrey, that pay nothing or almost nothing. They literally take advantage of us, and they take advantage of NATO. So you're delinquent, you're not paying your bills, you get attacked, and we're supposed to start World War III. And my attitude is that I can say this. As soon as I said, because the question was saying, sir, if we don't pay, are you saying that you will pull out of NATO? You will not protect us? I said, yes. If I said the other answer, it would just be the same thing, Jeffrey. And, it sounds like you're a fan of NATO. And I'm a fan of fair NATO, fair and reasonable. But don't forget, as I said, we got attacked on NATO, but we also got attacked on trade from Europe. Europe is horrible to us, horrible. France and the things they do to us, and we do nothing. Just the other day, it was announced that Harley Davidson, they're going to charge them a 60% tariff. And I said, well, that's okay. Now you charge their wine coming in a 60% tariff. And you know what's going to happen? The tariff will disappear from Harley Davidson, but nobody does that. They don't do it because that's not the way they are. So I would prefer staying in NATO, Jeffrey, but it has to be reasonable. It has to be fair. That's a good answer. I hope that's a good answer for you.
The next question will come from Margaret, who teaches at the University of Washington. Margaret.
Good.
Hi, President Trump. I'm Margaret O'Mara. I write about the technology industry, and that's the chapter that I'm writing about. And so the tech industry grew tremendously during your presidency. The market cap of the 5 biggest companies doubled. It's over $7 trillion now total. And you had both very close relationships with the leaders of the industry, as well as being one of its fiercest critics. Now Congress is contemplating a very significant package of legislation to regulate tech. And I'm interested what you think your role and legacy is in the relationship between big technology companies and their regulators, and where it might go from here.
Great question. So, and a very important question. During my administration, it grew tremendously, and I was very much for that. I was happy. I wanted, in fact, I would see all of them. Zuckerberg came in to see me, and we had dinner with his wife and my wife at the White House probably a year and a half ago. And he said, congratulations, you're #1 on Facebook. And I said, thank you very much. Little did I know that, they would take the approach that they took ultimately. And it's funny because they were totally against me, and basically conservatives, they were totally against. And yet I probably did more for them, rightfully, because I'm all for it. And I told him, and I told all of them, I said, you don't understand. You may be my enemy, but I'm not your enemy. I want you to succeed, because if you don't succeed, then China or somebody else is going to have Facebook bigger and better. So I want our companies to be the ones that are the biggest and the best. So I didn't want to break up Facebook. You never saw me talk too much about that. I didn't want to break up any of them because I was very proud of Google. I was very proud of Amazon. I was proud of all of them, even though they're not exactly fans of mine, but I've never expressed this to them, other than I did say that I want our companies to be the biggest and the best. And frankly, I didn't like the idea of breaking it up, because if you break it up into 5 pieces, then all of a sudden you have 5 much smaller companies, and you see what's happening to China. But one thing that's, I think, really interesting, France started talking about essentially an internet tax. And I said, wait a minute, I was the one that broke it up. Now they're going back to it because I'm not there. They wanted to tax our companies. Now, nobody's been tougher on me than the big tech. I mean, they, by the way, I think wrongfully because I helped them. And the fact that they were against me did not dissuade me because, again, I want our country to have the great companies. And these are great companies. They were built quickly, but they are great companies and very important. But when France did that, I called President Macron and I said, listen, if you don't take off the internet tax, and I had Mnuchin and other people negotiated and they failed. I said, that's all right, then I'll take over the negotiation. And I said to Macron, if you don't drop the internet tax on people that are my enemies in terms of their mind, not my mind, but I mean, it should be my mind. But I said to Macron, President Macron, I said, if you don't drop the internet tax that I know you know very much about, I am going to put a 100% tax on all wines and champagnes that come into the United States. No, 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 Donald, please don't do that. You cannot do that. You will destroy. I said, no, no. Look, these are our companies. You're not going to tax our companies. If anyone's going to tax our companies, it's going to be us. And I wouldn't have minded doing that. But you're not going to tax our companies. And he withdrew it. He withdrew it till January. And January was a very important date because he's another one. And I liked him. We were friends in a way, but he would much rather be dealing with Joe Biden. I can tell you that. And as soon as I left, he announced now that he wants to do a big internet tax. So it's such an interesting question that you're asking because I treated those companies great. I don't want anything for it. I just wanted to have the biggest, best companies. And if you break them up, all of a sudden you're breaking them up. And what's going to happen? Then China, with all of the players that you see now building and getting stronger and stronger, they will take over that whole industry like they have so many others. So I want them to be good. I want them to be strong. I do think they have to be fair. And I don't think they're fair. I think they're not fair to the conservative voice. I think they should be more open. Okay. And a really interesting question. Thank you. Thank you.
Next, Mike Kazin.
Thank you, Mr. President. While you were in office, you were beloved by conservatives. You're still beloved by conservatives, the whole polls show. But as a historian, I should say that you seem to have departed from some of the sort of holy of holy ideas that many conservatives had before. George W. Bush, for example, free trade, for example. I think you broke from what a lot of conservatives thought should be done on immigration. I wonder if you could reflect, do you think you changed conservatism or conservatives just never really liked ideas about more open borders and freer trade and so forth?
Yeah, very fair. So I'm for fair trade. I'm very strong on trade. The NAFTA was an example. Nobody thought we could end NAFTA. And the reason was because it was so good for two other countries, not for us. It was terrible for us. But I am for fair trade. What I hate seeing, and I've had some of these people where we put on tariffs because we had no choice. As an example, Mexico makes a fortune from Mexico makes $100 billion a year from the United States. And I went to the president of Mexico, who I really like, and who, as you heard, he likes me a lot. We, even though we come from different schools in terms of philosophy. And I said, look, people are pouring across our border. They are a lot of people, they're releasing people now. We had the border very in great shape, but now it's a disaster. It's the worst it's ever. It is so bad for our country. But they're releasing all of their prisoners from the jails, the murderers, the drug dealers. You've heard this. I mean, the drug dealers, the human traffickers, they're releasing. And I said to Mexico, I said, listen, you're going to have to put soldiers on the border. And if you don't do that, I'm going to charge you 10% tariff on all the cars that you make. And as you know, they stole 32% of our car business, automobile production business over the last 20 years, not during my time. 32% of the cars they took out of the United States, they make them in Mexico. And I said, and here's what's going to happen. Every month it goes up 5% until we get to 25. And the people in the State Department laughed when I said, you have to protect the border. They said, we've been trying to get them to do that. One woman, who's a terrific woman, but she said, sir, you must be kidding. Because I gave her a list of 10 things that I demand. She said, sir, we've been trying to get these things for a period of 20, 25 years, as long as I've been here. They won't do any of them. I said, no, they'll do all of them. And what happened is I said, it's 10% starting on Monday. It goes to 15% next month. It goes to 20 and then ultimately 25. And I'm going to hold it at 25. And within one day, I got all 10 points. You could ask Mike Pompeo. He couldn't believe it either. I got all 10 points. And one of them is that they would put soldiers at the border and they wouldn't let people come into our country because we didn't have the wall. We didn't have any protection. Our soldiers are very much not allowed to do things like you can do them by, they're restricted by Congress and all sorts of different elements of society. They're just not allowed to do what they're supposed to do. So we had 28,000 free, zero. We didn't pay 10 cents. And we built over 500 miles, up to 500 miles. Now it's going to be more. Now, one of the worst things that they did is stopping that it would have been finished in 2 months. And now I'm hearing they want to complete the wall. But we did a great job on that. And we did the wall that Border Patrol wanted. That's exact. I gave them everything they want. I said, give me the whole thing. They wanted see-through. They wanted bollards, not concrete, a whole lot of things. I did every single thing. And they stopped. The reason, by the way, because it's a little different than your question, I'll get back to it in a second, but the reason that I didn't get it quite finished, off by a little bit, couple of months, was because we had 2.5 years of lawsuits because Congress was suing and a lot of people were suing. And I ended up winning 11 lawsuits. And then I took some of the money from the military, actually got ultimately some money, as you know, $1.8 billion from Congress. And we got the wall completed. It was all bought. He stopped it in the middle. I mean, he stopped it. These contractors are going to have a field day. That's all I can tell you. This is not a good thing that he did. But so I think that when it comes to being conservative, I consider myself to be conservative, but I really consider myself to be a common sense person. I believe we have to have borders. I believe in good education. I believe in a strong military. I believe in law and order. I mean, law and order, just law and order. And I think they're mostly conservative. And the one interesting one, because you said free trade. So we don't have free trade because there's a man named Pat Toomey who I have constantly argued with. Because I say, let me ask you a question, Pat. India charges us a 100% tariff. We charge them nothing. When we send something over there, 100%, when they send the identical product over to us, nothing. I want to put a tariff on them, Pat, because I think I'll knock out the tariff that they're charging us. You can't do that. Why? That's not free trade. I said, where the hell do you come from? How stupid can you be? And so it's not that I want to do this stuff. It's just that we're treated so unfairly. And I would say, who are the stupid people that make these deals? I mean, the deals that we had with South Korea, that deal we made with South Korea, where everything, it's the most, I'd read these deals and I'd say, who negotiates these deals? They're so bad. So I agree with you, but the only difference is I would change the word. It's got to be fair trade. We don't have fair trade almost anywhere. Now we have with some countries, but almost anywhere. It's everything is so one-sided. And that's why we have, you'll have this year, $30 trillion in deficits. Think of it, 30 trillion. And there's no reason for that. So I agree 100%. I actually love your question. I'd like to use the word common sense. You can replace conservative with common sense. I don't care, really. But the very important thing is I just want it to be fair trade. And it's a great question, too. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm trying to get to as many questions as possible. We only have about 10 minutes left, but I will go next to Beverly, Beverly Gage from Yale University.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. President, for taking the time to speak with us. I am writing the chapter that is about your relationship with the FBI, the intelligence community, and the administrative state more broadly. And so I would...
That's going to be a beauty.
It's complicated. It's a lot to fit in.
That's a complicated one, right?
So I would welcome any general thoughts you wanted to offer on that, but there are Two moments that I think are often held up as moments when you sort of went after principles of the law or public servants in ways that are somewhat unprecedented in American history. And I would like to hear your reflections on whether you would do things differently now in retrospect. So one of those is the firing of James Comey. And the other is January 6th. And whether, you know, looking back, you would do anything differently in those two occasions, and also, you know, if you have broader thoughts about this subject.
Sure. I look, it's a very tough question, but it's something that's not very difficult for me to answer. James Comey was a bad guy. I actually think he was a sick person. And when you looked at Hillary Clinton, I mean, you know, it's very interesting. This is one that they certainly hated James Comey until I fired him. As soon as I fired him, they all of a sudden loved him. You know, you look back at the statements on Comey from the Democrats, there was nobody they hated more. A lot of them blamed him for her election loss, frankly, but they hated him. When I fired him, they loved him so much. He was the most wonderful guy, because that's politics. Not that they did, but that's politics. I thought he was a sick person. He lied a lot in front of Congress. I think that the Durham report is a shame that Bill Barr didn't allow that to get done during our administration. I thought the Horowitz report was terrific, and Bill Barr didn't allow that to come out the way it should have. You didn't need Durham. You had the Horowitz report, who was, by the way, appointed by, I believe, President Obama, but the IG Horowitz. A lot of respect for him. I have a lot of respect for him, but he did a report which was devastating to Comey, as you know, better than I do. It was a devastating. Even the New York Times wrote an editorial that was as bad as anything. They said, we don't believe it. And I thought Barr should have used that and proceeded, and he didn't. And now this thing is in this endless pit, which is, you know, welcome to government. And so I thought not only Comey, but you had the lovers. They were sick people. You had, I mean, look at what they were doing. Look at what they were saying. And we only caught them because they didn't go on their private servers. They went on the FBI servers because they didn't want to get caught by their spouses, okay? We came with the insurance policy. The famous insurance policy was actually a big day. The insurance policy, okay, with Hillary. That was a big one. And Strzok and the whole group, okay, the whole group. And they've been caught. Unfortunately, Barr didn't do the job that he should have done because he got frightened away by them. He got frightened away. You know, when they talked about impeaching him, he became a much different person. He was doing okay. I wouldn't say great, but when they talked about impeaching him, he became a different person. And he became afraid to go after the radical left, as I call it. The January 6th was much different. Those people went there because they felt the election was rigged and robbed and stolen. And it was also, if you really look, it was the largest group of people I've ever seen assembled. I've never seen. I really believe you had more than 1 million people there. I'm talking at the speech. But they were there because of the election. I also think they were infiltrated with, and I think people know this, but they were infiltrated and strongly infiltrated with BLM and with Antifa. Now, let's just get back to it, though. My speech was a presidential speech. I walked from the Oval Office. I made a speech. It was very modest in many ways, and it was a very peaceful speech. But there was a lot of, and there was a lot of love out there. There was tremendous love. And I think what happened to Ashley Babbitt was just a terrible thing. And I think what's happening now, where you have people incarcerated who should not be incarcerated, is a terrible thing. There were no guns other than the gun that shot Ashley. And I think that the story on January 6th is yet to be written. The real story, the accurate story on January 6th. January 6th was a massive, a tremendous group of people. And by the way, I said, because everybody I knew said, oh, I'm going to be there on January 6th. And I said, you know, I think this is going to be very big. Like I had a rally the other night in Ohio. I said, this is going to be very big. They're all big. But I said, this thing is going to be big. And as you heard, I had recommended that we have 10,000 of National Guard be present. And it was turned down either by Nancy Pelosi or the Capitol. They didn't like the idea. They didn't like the look of it. But that was before, a few days before. But I recommended that to the highest authorities. And it was only a recommendation because I'm saying, well, and they felt that the Capitol Police could handle it. And it turned out that the Capitol Police were very much at fault. So January 6th was a group of people that came together. There was tremendous love. And then a lot of things happened that just were bad. But a very big thing was the way it was handled by the police. But rhetorically, what I said, everybody that's read it, pretty much once they read it, they can never win the debate. But I was very unhappy with it. I was amazed and very thrilled by the crowd because I've spoken in front of very large crowds. In my opinion, that was way over 1 million people. That was the biggest crowd I've ever spoken to. But a tiny portion of that went to the Capitol, as you know. A very small portion of that went to the Capitol. And unfortunately, some bad things happened. Absolutely. Okay. Going to be an interesting chapter.
You have time for one more question, Mr. President?
Yeah, please. Sure.
I'd like to call on Merlin from Columbia. He's writing the chapter on COVID and the pandemic. Merlin.
Okay, good.
Thank you. I have a very quick question about COVID and scientific experts and who you trust and who you don't. You were very vocal about which scientific findings and public health strategies and medical therapies you believed in and which ones you didn't. And I just wanted to know, how do you pick which expert voices to trust, to not trust, to critique, not critique, to ignore, to accept? What's your process?
Sure. I read a lot. I see a lot. I hear a lot. And I'm in a position as president where, a lot of information is given to me. And, don't forget, I, like many other people, sort of thought the word pandemic was from hundreds of years ago. And all of a sudden, we are forced with making a decision. Do I close our country to China? Everybody was against that except me, and I did the right thing. I think most people agree, and then ultimately to Europe very early. But I form an opinion based on what I hear. And as an example, one of the things I heard was the hydroxychloroquine. And I've seen very good reports on it. But I view it a little bit differently because it's been around for 60 years, as you know, for other things. And there was no danger in taking it. So I was sort of surprised when people went so crazy. And as you know, much better than I, recently, some pretty good reports came out on it. I just felt that it was something that certainly we had nothing. Nobody knew anything about this horrible disease, or however you want to define it, plague, frankly. Nobody knew. So when and a lot of people swore by hydroxychloroquine and a lot of chloroquine, and a lot of doctors were writing very positive reports. And I often think that if I came out against it, because I really believe a lot of people, my opponents went against it because I was for it. And I've sort of said, I wonder if I said, you must not take hydroxychloroquine, I think probably they would have said, oh no, that's a terrible thing he's saying, take it. But all I can do is rely on the scientists, the doctors, all the people that do it, many of whom I must tell you, I have tremendous admiration for. It's a funny thing. A lot of people don't know this. I actually got along very well with Fauci. I would listen to him, and oftentimes I wouldn't do. You know the story where he didn't want masks, and then all of a sudden he became a radical masker, as I call him. But I actually had quite a good relationship. I understood he was a Democrat. He was also there forever. Some people asked me why I didn't fire him. I said, because look, he gives me an opinion. He's another opinion. He gives me an opinion. I got a kick out of him. I call him, he'd say, call me Tony, sir. And, he was a character, but he had a point of view, and I loved listening to his point of view. And I would then do what I thought was right, but I listened to a lot of point of views. No, I had a lot of respect for the people in that fight. there are people that are totally unsung who did a phenomenal job. The people that came up with a plan for distribution, the general and the generals and the military, as you know, that was an incredible plan that really worked out well. And all the other administration did is they carried it forward. But I had a lot of respect for the people that I dealt with. And I didn't always agree, but I'd agree with them a lot. Some of the things that came, the Regeneron, I thought was very good. I mean, I don't know. I took it and I got better. I don't know, was I going to get better anyway? All I can say is I took it and I got better. I did take hydroxychloroquine because I knew this, if it didn't work, it wasn't going to hurt you. That's a big thing. You know, there's a difference between taking something that has tremendously negative side effects, including death, and taking something that's been around for 50, 60 years. And a lot of people didn't like it, I've been told, because it only cost 4 cents a pill. So the drug companies hated it because 4 cents a pill was not exactly their cup of tea. But tremendous respect for many, many people that I dealt with during this period of time. And I really think we did a job like nobody could have done. And again, I told you at the beginning, I'll tell you just quickly, so many of the countries that they talked about how well they're doing, you know, they did that to show that we're not doing, well, those countries have been ravaged since then. Nobody talks about that. India is an example. I mean, India was they are doing so great. I mean, they are just being destroyed right now as we speak. They are being destroyed. And here we are back to building a really strong economy. But I had great respect for a lot of those people, and I appreciate that question.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, and I'm sorry I didn't get to all the questions, but I want to thank everyone for assembling, including President Trump. As historians, we always value the opportunity to hear directly from participants in what we study, and especially the president. And I hope everyone stays healthy, has a nice weekend, and I just want to say thank you to everyone.
Well, thank you very much, Julian. Thank you to everyone. I look forward to meeting you, and I hope it's going to be a #1 bestseller. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.